All right. Okay. Good evening. Okay. We'll get started for today's session over here. So as usual, what we're gonna do is to walk you through the overview of the week. Okay. We're gonna look into some of the potential setups over here, and then we'll have a quick Q&A session. So if you have any questions, you can actually post it into the chats. I'll be monitoring them. Okay, and after that we'll just do a quick summary, okay, and to also share with you some of the upcoming events that we may have, as well as any updates from my side over here. Okay, so good. So let's get started, right? I always start off the week looking at what are some of the major events that you want to take note of. So last week, of course, we do have a pretty interesting US data coming in, right? So you see over here, average hourly earnings came in as expected, right? Non-farm payroll actually came way better than the expectation, but unemployment rate actually increased quite significantly. Okay, so overall, okay, I would say it's kind of a mixed data in terms of jobs, right? Very positive non-farm, but unemployment rate actually increased. Okay, so that's a little bit on the updates over here. Of course, we did see the dollar strengthen to end of last week. Okay, so we'll definitely look into like this week here, what's the analysis, what's our perspective, what's our point of view, and what to look out for. Okay, so that's on last week's NFP. So going into this week here, tomorrow we do have the RBA cash rate. Okay, so we kind of expect right now the market is expecting it to maintain at 3.85. We may potentially get a surprise. Okay, so just keep it on that. That may create some kind of volatility for us to catch on the Aussie if you're interested in it. Right. Then on Wednesday we have the BOC, right, Bank of Canada. So right now again the expectation is to maintain at 4.5. We may see some kind of a surprise over here as well if they decide to hike it. Okay. And to end off the week, we do have the Canadian labor market data. Okay, so this week here, I think the focus would very much be on Aussie, followed by the CAD, right? Canadian labor market data is actually quite easy to trade in the recent few months or even like since last year. Okay, a couple of, I think 1 or 2 years, all the way until now. CAD labor market has been pretty easy to trade for news, right? Meaning if you're interested in catching that kind of volatility, CAD data is actually way easier than NFP itself. Okay, that's my personal observation. So if you're more into like news trading, looking to catch maybe the breakout volatility from surprises, right? CAD labor market data is definitely one of those that you want to pay close attention to that. Okay, so that's the overview in terms of some of the events that you definitely want to have in mind. Okay, and with that said, let's take a look at the technical portion of things. Okay, now start off with the dollar index over here. Okay, so last week, midweek, we kind of see a dollar drop. Okay, and then after that, of course, NFP released, the dollar strengthened back up. So kind of a little bit of a V shape right now over here. Okay, but from my perspective, I'm a little bit on the bearish side of things. Now it may not be like total reversal and things like that, but minimally what I'm expecting is kind of like a three-wave structure. Okay, so maybe if I were to draw this out, it'll probably be something like this. It may not come back down to such a low point. Okay, but of course we do have some fibs here to guide us in terms of like the expectation. What we may get is potentially just maybe towards like 103, which kind of coming quite nicely with the previous structure over here. Okay, so kind of potentially retest the wave 4 area. Okay, so of course this doesn't mean that you immediately go and execute a sell trade on dollar right now, because this is definitely a pretty strong move to the upside. Okay, so the suggestion here of course is for me, I'm actually interested in any sell trade, but of course you need to be very clear in terms of your setup. For me, of course, this is not the best setup, right? I mean, the market just went up quite strongly last week. There's no reason to sell it there. unless you decide to maybe go down to a lower time frame, probably on the H1 we're already seeing kind of a divergence building up, right? As the market goes higher, you do see the RSI momentum indicator kind of prints a divergence, which again, momentumly, it means that it's lacking to the upside and we may see a reversal. Okay, so a setup to me is wait for a push down, wait for a corrective structure, and then that would be a sell, okay, to the downside. Okay, so you of course need to have your personalized setup, right? Whatever that kind of give you the conditions and criteria to execute a trade. But for now, okay, if you can see a decent rejection back down, maybe starting tomorrow on the dollar, okay, we can expect a little bit more downside, maybe back towards 103.09. Right. So if you are then looking at the euro dollar, kind of like the inverse of it, okay, so if of course you don't trade the dollar index directly, then the closest you can get is the euro dollar. Okay, so same thing over here. I think if you go over to the hourly, okay, pull out your RSI, you can see that we are building up that divergence. All right, so the thing here is wait for a push, wait for a correction on the lower time frame, and then that may be your setup to get involved in a buy trade. Okay, so same thing over here. I don't think that we're probably gonna get so high up, right? So if I can update that FIPS a little bit, potentially maybe back towards like 1.0820, towards 1.0850 zone, right? So kind of coming back to quite similar to like wave 4 structure over here. Okay, so that's the view on euro. We may get a short-term buy setup. Okay, but you probably need to just give it some time, develop the setup that you are interested in, and then get involved in the buy. GBP USD actually last week tagged at 618 and then reversed very nicely. Last week we did share also in terms of the sell, okay, that we're interested in terms of bearish opportunities, simply because of this pattern, right? So we kind of have a leading diagonal to the downside. We expect a pullback, and the expectation over here we're basing on is the market tends to move in a set of three. Okay, so we kind of have a first wave down, and then we have a first wave pullback, or I would say second wave pullback. So we kind of expect a third wave down, right? So that's the simple kind of expectation that we always carry in our analysis. And we also have a very nice confluence, of course, at the 618, coming back to where we call this the crawl, okay, where the crawl actually started, forming over here. That's again, very high probabilities. The market tends to do this kind of pattern. So again, in the future, if you identify something like that, that would be a nice little trade that you can always, capitalize on. So GBP USD right now, we're expecting more downside, okay, potentially towards 1.2170 area. So any kind of like corrective pullback and corrections that you see over here for the week, okay, meaning if this goes slow, that would definitely be a sell trade opportunity targeting at 1.2170. Okay, for me right now, I will update this. Okay, the invalidation of course doesn't need to be so high up. We can just use the recent high here as our invalidation, which means as long as the market maintains below this level at 1.2545, any kind of corrective pullback is actually a sell opportunity. Of course, you can also put in kind of like a trend line over here, consolidation just around that trend line, and then you can even consider a breakout trade to the downside. Okay, so GBP USD, definitely you want to pay a little bit more attention to that. I think pretty much a decent setup might build into this week. Okay, Aussie dollar over here for me, I'm right now being a little bit more of a neutral perspective. Okay, the market kind of completed this 1, 2, 3 structure. We have this divergence over here. This is a very nice little push up. The reason for me being neutral is because we are kind of interacting around what we call a key level, and when we have such a pattern, right? So market actually come down, or say came down, okay, and then it kind of reversed towards a 50% mark. What we can potentially see is if this does a slow corrective move, this can actually go back higher. Okay, and alternatively, what we can see is we can also see a rejection back down. Okay, so this area here will probably give it a little bit more time to see how the market is going to develop. That's the reason why we're neutral. Okay, if this can develop into a 3-wave corrective pullback, we can take a short-term buy to complete this as a 1, 2, 3, or even potentially all the way back up. That might happen. If this starts to do a crawl, okay, then of course we may start to look for maybe downside, right? So we need to give it time to see what the market is going to develop before committing to any particular direction to focus. Okay, so that's the reason why Aussie dollar here, I'm basically neutral on that. Maybe going into tomorrow RBA rate statement, when we have a clearer patterns from the market, that may establish a better directional bias. All right. And then we have the dollar CAD. Okay, so dollar CAD here is quite similar to pound dollar. We're basically bearish on this, and of course any kind of corrective pullback, we're essentially looking for sell opportunity. Okay, now you can even consider, while we're looking at sell opportunity, right, we can also consider if this buy short term, whether is it worth it or not. Okay, because usually the market after such an impulsive drop, we tend to see a little bit of a pullback. But of course you need to be very, very careful on that, right? Because you're basically trading the short-term pullback, which may result in a longer-term drop. Okay, so this one here, one way to look at it from an Elliott Wave point of view, okay, is that we can look at it as a third wave done. Wave 4 maybe developing, and of course after that we'll expect a wave 5 move to the downside, right? If this is the case, then of course our invalidation can be shifted towards where wave 1 is, because wave 4 should never cross wave 1 territory, right? And again, if you go down to a lower time frame, what we have over here, okay, is that this has built in a divergence, which again suggests to us maybe short term we can consider any kind of like short term buy opportunity, right? And that's where, if you're interested in it, you may potentially to consider looking into it. Now in the morning, I was looking at, in the morning before this actually all develops, I was personally looking at, can we get a nice little impulse breakout? Okay, so for now, okay, what we have as the market develops, as kind of more information to look at it, this doesn't look very promising to the upside for any kind of impulsive move, right? So that's the reason why I decide to just take that trade off. In terms of pending buy, right? So whenever we get in it, it's just basically waiting for the breakout. So I decided to take that order off, and then I'll just let this play out, and potentially I'm not interested in the short-term buy anymore, but I'm more interested in the long-term sell. Okay, which means I'm interested more in trading the fifth wave down from here. If I were to add in a bit of FIP expectation, where would wave 4 potentially ends? This would be the guide, right? So in terms of FIPs here, maybe wave 4 would come back towards like 1.3460 to 1.35. This area would then be a sell opportunity to develop wave 5 down. Okay, so this was something that I'll be more interested in right now. Okay, so dollar CAD here, potentially look for a sell opportunity. Okay. Dollar yen. Okay, so dollar yen is actually quite similar to the dollar index. We kind of had a drop, and then NFP kind of push it back up. We're kind of testing the 618 area right now. If we can get a rejection from here, then of course we'll look at it as a 1, 2, 3. Maybe it will come back and retest the bottom of the trend line. Now alternatively, what can happen is this can be the entire piece of a correction, and this drop can be fast. Okay, which means that what we're looking at potentially is, if this just does a 3-wave move, okay, it's fine. We'll probably manage the trade of a sell. If this in fact is a start of a trend reversal, so this would then be wave 1, potentially wave 2, and then 3, 4, 5, and then downside can be quite big, right? So dollar yen, or in fact most of the yen pairs, are definitely something that you want to start paying very, very close attention to, because the downside opportunity of all these yen pairs can be quite huge, right? Especially since if you take a look at it, it has developed for some time, to the upside, but it's not going very fast. Okay. From a higher time frame perspective, the dollar yen has also completed a potential 1, 2, 3. So this move to the downside may even retest the low at 127. Okay. So that's something that to me is very, very interesting, and something that I would personally pay very, very close attention to in terms of all these yen pairs. Okay. So keep a close watch on the dollar yen over here. Again, you need to obviously have your setup, right? Right now on the 1 hour, I can share with you is we do have a divergence building, right? Which again indicates a potential reversal may come. So you definitely want to keep an eye on it, right? Again, you need to have a clear trading setup and trading plan to execute these kind of trades, right? So that's on dollar yen. Okay, XAU USD. Gold, I'm neutral. Okay, basically again NFP can't push the dollar strength. Gold prices against the dollar actually drop. Right now, I'm neutral, and potentially what can happen over here is maybe we'll just see a simple three-wave corrective pullback. Okay, this may need some time for the market to develop, right? So something like this, and if that's gonna be corrective in its development, okay, then what we may potentially get is just a three-way pullback, and then from there we may then see a bigger move to the downside. Okay, so we'll need to give it a little bit more time. I think this week we'll probably just wait and see how prices on gold is going to develop. If it's just going to go up, as I mentioned, correctively respecting this channel, then maybe long term we can still see a little bit more downside. I would say mid term, see a little bit more downside to complete this as a 1, 2, 3, and then only the major move back up. Okay, so you need to probably be a little bit patient on gold for the week. Yeah. S&P last week actually saw the S&P actually move towards our target. We are aiming around 4300, right? But anyway, we're very, very close to that. And we may see a temporary fifth wave completed over here. Or it may still be, extended. But for now, while we're bullish, we'll probably want to be a little bit careful. And if you have any buy, you might want to even consider just take some profits off the trade. Because right now we kind of completed a set of 3. Okay, so you can see here WXY, and of course over here we have potentially also completed another 3-wave up. Okay, another WXY, and that may then build into a bigger 3-wave completion over here as well. Okay, so in terms of like this 5th wave, we'll see. Okay, we'll probably need to keep monitoring how it goes, but general direction is definitely upside. But you want to just take some partial profit and manage your position if you have any buy, right? Because we're coming close to a key significant area which we may see either a deeper pullback or even a potential short-term reversal coming from S&P. Okay, so yeah, that's basically the analysis on that. Nothing much. If you don't have any trade on it, then just stay out of it, be patient for now. Right, so that's on the equities itself. And then on BTC here, we may need to give it a little bit more time. I mean, the market is currently testing that 618. But it may not seem as straightforward as it is overall right now, okay? Because over here, if I were to kind of like remove all this, what can potentially play out in Bitcoin is, this can still come lower to complete maybe a bigger move like this before that push up, right? So kind of like this entire piece of correction may still be developing. So it's not the clearest of all, okay? But we need to see, right? I mean, the idea here is if this bounce up strongly, of course, any kind of pullback where we get an impulse correction is definitely a buy. But if this doesn't push up impulsively in the near term, then we'll need to reanalyze it again. Okay. But if you're into crypto, my suggestion is maybe instead of like Bitcoin, you may want to pay a little bit more attention to Ethereum, right? Because to me, Ethereum seems to be doing a better setup over here. Okay, because this setup over here seems to be a little bit neater. Okay, neater meaning we can see a very nice little 3-wave structure, right? Okay, so that's something that give me a clearer setup than Bitcoin, right? Which means that we'll potentially look to get involved in a buy somewhere around that zone, and of course our invalidation is below this low, and then our target will be at the top, right? So you can see Ethereum is doing a very nice little three-wave structure, but Bitcoin doesn't really give us that, right? So between like these two major crypto, if you're into crypto market, okay, Ethereum seems to be giving a nicer opportunity, a clearer structure for us to get involved in the trade, as compared to Bitcoin itself. All right. So yeah. So for me, I think the aspect in which, like, what are some of the potential ones to take note of for the week. GBP USD is definitely one, right? If you can kind of get a corrective pullback, maybe by Thursday or Friday, we can get a sell set up. Dollar CAD over here, okay, maybe give it another 2 days, Wednesday, Thursday. If you can get a corrective pullback, we may get a sell set up this week. Dollar yen, definitely, right? You want to keep an eye on any sell trade opportunity. So in terms of like majors, you're gonna get like pound dollar. I mean, keep an eye on pound dollar, dollar CAD, and dollar yen. Okay. Commodities like gold, you may just want to be patient on it. Okay, I think this week you're probably not gonna get anything. And then in terms of crypto market, right? You want to pay attention to Ethereum, right? Because again, give it maybe another 2 to 3 days by Wednesday or Thursday. If this comes down correctively, we may get an opportunity to buy into Ethereum, maybe nearer towards the end of the week. Okay, so yeah, hope so far so good. Okay, yep. So right now, if you guys have any questions, maybe you can put it up into the chat, then we can share a little bit on that, right? Good. So Jason here asks about GBP JPY. Okay, GBP JPY, I think right now as we're speaking, we do have a little bit of a rejection back down. You can see I have this dotted trend line over here. The idea is, of course, we can break this dotted trend line impulsively and ideally, close below it and start to form a little bit of a corrective structure from there. Okay, then we can expect more downside, right? So again, this is one of the yen pairs that you can see the market has actually pulled up quite far, quite similar to the dollar yen. So if we can get some form of a sell setup, I think it's worth noting, and look up for a sell trade opportunity. Okay, but of course, right now, I mean, before this few candles that's happened just like this afternoon and evening, we were neutral because again, you can read a little bit on my commentary over here. We're basically waiting for the impulse move first, right? So if end of today, going into tomorrow, we can see the market ends with an impulsive move, then any kind of pullback would definitely be a very nice little sell trade opportunity to look out for. Okay, I mean, not only the pound yen, but the yen pairs in general. Of course, not all yen, right? I mean, if you take a look like Aussie yen, you probably wouldn't want to be looking at sell it, right? Because it's very impulsive to the upside. But things like dollar yen, okay, you can consider a sell. Pound yen, you can consider a sell. Euro yen may not be the obvious one. Okay, if I were to take away all those, not the best, right? I mean, you can just compare some of the structure. It's cleaner on some versus the other. Okay, so I think if you're looking at selling the yen pairs, probably dollar yen and pound yen would be the better ones, right? Even CAD yen here may not be the clearest of all. Okay, we may have completed a three-wave structure over here. Okay, quite nicely around that 1:1. Okay, so maybe CAD yen is something you can consider as well. But of course, you need your setup, right? You need to be very clear like what is gonna give you the entry condition. Okay, so of course, for me, if you are more conservative, wait for an impulsive drop, wait for a correction. That to me always is the best setup to be looking at sell. Okay, but of course, if you're aggressive, you can just go into the lower time frame and say that, okay, if even on 30-minute, you may get like what, a head and shoulder kind of setup, right? 15-minute. Okay, and I don't do this, but just showing you, different traders with different time frame would look at things slightly different, right? This can be a setup as well, which means that if you're kind of like head and shoulder pattern trader, okay, the kind of conventional way to do it is to trade the break of the neckline, right? Which potentially may break, in maybe the next few minutes, okay. And then of course that would then be a potential setup for you if you're looking at 15 minutes and head and shoulder pattern. If it's a valid setup, right, then you can do this. Okay, yeah. So that's on CAD Yen. Crude oil over here, basically we are looking at bullish opportunity. Okay, any kind of like pullback right now may serve as a potential buy setup, right? So something like that. And look for one more push back up. So the principle here is quite straightforward. Impulse 1, 2, 3 is an expanding correction, so we're expecting another move back up to complete 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So any kind of like corrective pullback and retracement can actually be seen as a potential buy setup, right? But of course, the keyword is corrective, right? If it drops fast, then you just be careful because this becomes a V. Corrective means this takes time, it comes down slow, then that builds in a very nice little buy. Okay, so that's on crude oil, right? Potential target is somewhere around $77.20. Okay. James here asked about Kiwi dollar. Kiwi dollar, I would suggest to stay neutral for now, with a little bit of an upside potential, right? I mean, we can look at it from this angle. 3-wave corrective right now. Of course, you haven't really tested the bottom of it, but again, nothing is perfect. You just want to be a little bit careful right now because after this push, we seems to be getting a bit downward. Of course, you need more time to see how the pattern is going to evolve. If this, of course, play out into something like that, you can look for a buy. But you just want to be aware that this can still play out into a crawl pattern before the big move up, right? So give it another 2 days, I would say. If this can give you a very clear 3-wave correction, of course it's upside. If it comes back down more, then this may start to turn out maybe into a crawl. Then you may need to be more patient on that. Okay, that's the overview. But I think overall, okay, I think there's a higher possibility of an upside because of this impulse move. This looks very corrective as a whole. Longer term is looking at upside. Okay, yeah. Cool. Yep, okay, so Aussie, I think we talked about it already. And then over here, Chia is asking about Hang Seng in China market, right? Hong Kong and China market. So Hong Kong market kind of bounce off this level at 1, 2, 3, right? So kind of like a 1, 2, 3 ABC move here. So right now, if you're looking at Hang Seng, okay, we kind of have a pretty neat V shape. Okay, kind of V shape, right? Over here you can see. So if you can get a corrective pullback, then of course that would give you a nice decent buy opportunity. Okay, whether is this going to be a short-term buy and then this may come back down or not, I think it's still worth considering. Okay, the reason is because if you take this buy here, you manage it if you're in profit, because the idea is this may have completed the bigger move and this can start to make a move back up, right? So there's a huge upside opportunity. The question is just, are we gonna get the upside from here, or is this just gonna come down more before the bigger move back up, right? We'll never know for sure. So the idea is, with this V shape, and if we can get a corrective pullback, if you get a buy setup, then you'll be interested in the upside. Okay, so that's on Hang Seng, right? Hong Kong. China is kind of pretty similar in the structure. Right now we kind of have a little bit of a V here. Okay, so we're testing close to that 50 and 618. You might want to give it a bit more time to see if you can get a clearer 3-wave. Okay, so this is just 1, right? So you want to wait for 2, you want to wait for 3, and then you take this up. Okay, so both of these are quite similar in terms of like A50 and HSI, right? Okay, so same thing over here. You can see this may have completed that corrective move now. Okay, so over here this may start to build up, right? So these two shares, these two index are pretty similar, Hang Seng and in terms of like China, right? Okay, okay, we'll take one more here from Wayne asking about Kiwi Cat, right? So Kiwi Cat, okay, Kiwi Cat here, I would say you want to be careful on any sell because again, this kind of pattern here potentially is reversing soon. We have divergence build up as well. Okay, so it may not be an immediate buy, right? But I think Kiwi Cat, some of you are trading. We can't talk about it for some of the sharing session as well. You can see over here from this peak, you can count the market in swings, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, from Elliott Wave perspective, this is a typical what we call a double tree. Okay, double tree meaning internally. Okay, if I just want to put it in a different label, we have an ABC that forms the W. We have a reset move, which is your X wave over here, and then we have another ABC, which form your Y. Okay, so this is called a double zigzag, or double tree. Okay, and most of the time to make things easier, you count the move, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's a complete set, right? If we only get, in the corrective move, right? If you only get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is not a complete set, right? You always expect 6 and 7. Okay, 1, 2, 3 is a complete set. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is not a complete set, and 6 and 7 is a complete set, right? That's how we label the charts, right? How we expect the charts to develop. So Kiwi Cat over here, we kind of have a 7 move. Okay, so potentially that's where I say we may have completed a full set. Okay, and of course in terms of FIPS expectation, we should get a very nice little equal leg here as well. So there's no reason to be selling it now. Okay, so from a daily time frame perspective, obviously is a better probability to start focusing on a buy. But again, you need to have a clear setup, right? Because the market is coming down. If you're trying to catch the very, very bottom, it may be quite risky. And for me, I always say, wait for some kind of an impulsive rejection up, wait for a pullback. That will be a more conservative way of entering a trade, right? That's the setup. But again, every trader is different, right? Some of you may be looking at, I don't know, lower time frame. 15-minute, you have a double bottom, break of a neckline, maybe a retest here on a 15-minute will give you an entry. Okay, that's also a valid entry, a valid setup. Okay, and of course on a 15-minute, you may also look out for divergence. You can see here double bottom, divergence, very nice. 15-minute also breakout of the neckline. Okay, impulsively. So what you can do is maybe you can wait for a pullback. Okay, maybe the pullback is just towards this zone. Okay, or you may wait for a pullback towards 50 and 618. Again, these are just giving you an example of what I meant by a setup. Okay, and every trader is different, right? Because this setup here is usually what we call a double bottom, double top, a break and wait for a pullback kind of setup. Okay, now I don't really trade this setup anymore. But I'm just giving you examples of how you build up a setup so that you know what are the conditions that you need before you get involved in the trade, right? And you can't say, oh, because we hit a certain level, we just buy, right? I think that is not very comprehensive. You need a little bit more conditions and criteria as to the reason for getting involved in the buy. Okay, so Kiwi Cat for me, I think that's something to note. Okay. Richmond say dollar gap down. Okay, my dollar index chart here is definitely delayed, right? So yeah, we are definitely seeing a little bit of a dollar weakness now, right? You can see euro dollar is actually pushing up. This one's not really moving. Dollar yen is coming down very nicely, right? So that's definitely great. Pound yen also, right? Yeah, so again, some of this setups and opportunities that we share with you, don't take it as just a signal. Okay, take it as giving you an overview of the week. What are some of the things that you can potentially focus on, okay, for higher probability setups that you may have the opportunity to take, right? But of course, you still need to have your base and foundation of how to trade, how to execute, how to manage. Okay, so I hope that helps. Okay, so good. Now with that, we'll do a kind of like wrap up over here and share with you some of the updates from my side. Okay, now for June, we do have a couple of offline physical events that we have planned out. Okay, so over here I'll share with you some little photos that I've prepared. Okay, so June offline event will be holding it on the 15th and 17th of June, right? So over here, this would be mainly in Malaysia. So of course, if you're based in Malaysia, you're based in certain states in Malaysia, feel free to join us for the event. Okay. If you are not physically there in that particular town, this is not confirmed yet. Okay, but we may be also doing concurrent online with offline, right? So this is also for those that perhaps not in the state that are interested to attend may also join in. Okay, but this is not confirmed. But in terms of like physical event is confirmed. Okay, so over here for the first one is gonna be on at Ipoh. Okay, so Ipoh here will be conducting in Mandarin. Okay, and all this session will be sharing a little bit more about EA trading, right? So EA means expert advisor, or some people call it robot automation, in terms of trading. We'll share on that topic. Okay, so Ipoh will be done in on 15th, okay, which is a Thursday evening. So again, if you're interested in all this, and you're based in Ipoh, right, do RSVP with the team. Okay, so if today you're watching it on Zoom, the team will actually drop a link that you can click, and it will direct you to WhatsApp, and you can just let the team know that you're interested in this particular event. If you're watching right now on YouTube, okay, in the description box below, I do have also a WhatsApp link, right? You can actually reach out to the team. And then on the 17th June, which is a Saturday, right, on the weekend, we'll be in Penang, Georgetown. This will be happening in the morning, right? And then if you're at Bukit Mertajam, this will be happening in the afternoon, right? So in Penang, we'll be doing it in English. In Bukit Mertajam, we'll be doing it in Mandarin, okay, Chinese. Okay, so the topic is on EA trading, right? Basically, I'll be sharing with you what are some of the factors that you need to consider if you're interested in using automation. All right, so these are the events that we'll be having. Okay, last one over here. I mean, some of you who probably have joined some of our sharing on previous events that we talk about EA trading as well. And then of course we introduce to you in terms of like PAM, okay, the PAM system. So we recently kick off that in the month of May. Some of you actually joined in for that. Just want to very quickly share with you the results so far. Okay, in the month of May, we managed to get about 8.8%. If you round down a little bit, that's 8%. So we are probably closing off, in terms of intake for potential investors over here for June already. But again, if you're interested in something like that, you're interested to find out a little bit more about EA trading, you're interested to know a little bit more about PAM, feel free to reach out to the team as well. Okay, you may not make it in time for June, but when we open up in July, okay, you may be able to then join us on July, right? Starting July. Okay, same thing over here. If you're interested in all this, feel free to just click on the link to WhatsApp and reach out to the team. Okay, so this one here is based on EA trading, right? So PAM, very quickly, stands for percentage allocation, kind of like management, module management, right? Which basically means that if today you're interested in using EA, I do have an EA account, right? So what you can do is you can tag your trading account to my EA account, and then whatever trades my EA take, you also benefit from those trades, right? So over here you can see we basically make about 8%, which means the investors that tag into this PAM account would have also profited about 8% from the month of May. Okay, so that's basically a very brief introduction about what PAM is. Of course, if you're interested, as I mentioned, just WhatsApp to the team. They'll be able to share a little bit more with you. Cool. Okay, so that's all from me for today's session over here. Okay, all the best to your trading for the week. Okay, and with that, we'll end off today, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Okay, so see you guys. Bye bye.